Hello, I'm Keith Reynolds. Welcome to SMarketPlace Live. I'm hosting this with Tom Dempsey. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Keith. I'm Tom Dempsey, VP of Sales for Market Share Growth Experts. Glad to be here as always, Keith.
It's good to see you. Rock and roll, buddy.
Rock and roll.
So we have a terrific guest today. I've really enjoyed getting to know him this past year. Clay Hicks. Welcome, Clay.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Keith. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So
Happy to have you.
Clay, it's really great to have you. Clay is the founder and CEO of the H7 Network, and the point of this show is to talk about sales, marketing, and rock and roll. And Tom and I met networking actually with a group here in Denver, and on our first sit down for coffee after meeting, we discovered that both of us saw Boston in 1978 for our first concert. And we started talking about, he's a sales guy, I'm a marketing guy. And the whole idea of how sales and marketing have to work together as a team came up as what a band has to do. And then all of the analogies of a band working together, selling records, selling out concerts, growing your audience. All of those are the things that we have to do as sales and marketing people as a team today. So that's the premise of SMarketPlace. Clay, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background and how H7 came about?
Sure. So again, thanks guys for having me on here. I'm an entrepreneur. That's pretty much what I am, and so I have a few specialties that I'm good at. Anyway, H7 is getting ready to celebrate 16 years in just a couple weeks. And
Wow.
so then we also are a hybrid community. We're a hybrid community. So we are made up of an in-person side to our entire community. And then we have our virtual side to our community. And as an entrepreneur, it's been quite a journey getting to this point. I've actually owned my own business or been an entrepreneur since I was 23. And when I worked at the steel mill back in the day. And
Wow.
when I started H7, I was a single parent. I raised my two biological daughters by myself for 7 years before getting married, all while running H7 at the same time. And honestly, just a little bit about myself. I'm extremely driven, relentless, all those kinds of descriptions. And then I'm also a word of mouth marketing specialist. So that's where that's a little bit about myself. So
Dive in a little bit on word of mouth marketing specialist.
yeah, so it's been quite a transformational journey, beginning when I started H7. Of course, why I still do it and why I started is two different things. But becoming a word of mouth marketing specialist was not something I had planned to do. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing. And when I started going on my journey and doing one-to-ones with everyone that I've done them with, I picked up things along the way. And
you've done quite a few one-on-ones.
I have, yeah. I'm about to hit 7,600 one-to-ones that I have met, either in 30 minutes or 60 minutes since August 1st of 14. And just a slew of, real evolution of learning and advancing what I understood about building relationships and more has been derived from that experience.
Why did you get started? Like, what was the motivation behind it? You had a pretty big challenge as a single father, so you had some motivation, I guess.
Yeah, well, so like when I started, I was just trying to fill a need, and I wanted something local, and I love people, and so I just started it a little touch out of frustration because of what existed at the time. And but really the catalyst to be what it's become today was my wife and I were going to get married, and we need to figure out how to expand the business. And via her recommendation, well, first of all, we went from just myself and my 2 biological daughters to 3 bonus children and my new wife. So we had to do something to advance the business.
Wow.
Via her recommendation, I started doing all these one-to-ones. And I remember like it was yesterday, I basically said, okay, I'm going to meet with anybody that will meet with me, and I'm going to see how I can help. And that's pretty much been the attitude ever since. So I've learned a lot, of course.
Well, go ahead, Tom.
No, what's the meaning or the significance of the name H7?
That's a good question. So the short story is we had to change the name. It used to be called something else. The long short story is we used to be called TBN. And when I was getting married, of course, I had already received my first cease and desist letter from Trinity Broadcast Network. And so I was just going to work way back in 2015. In fact, I just found the original document I made, and I called it the official H7 application. And I changed the name back then because you couldn't expand via TBN. And so H7 in that moment of time, when I was figuring out how to white label H7 way back in the day there, I called it the official H7 application, which back then stood for Hicks with 7 family members.
Gotcha.
Then I got a second to cease and desist. Then I got a third. And so in 2015, they did not seem to be going away. So we changed it. And then
Gotcha.
and then we had to change what it meant too, because I didn't want to use my last name as part of the company. So,
well, the really interesting thing is you can just kind of sense how family is such an important value to you, and it is. You surround yourself with it and take it into your business and have grown from that idea and that motivation. That's really cool.
Yeah. People give me a hard time about what it originally stood for, and then sometimes they'll be around other people and say, yeah, Hicks and 7 family members, but that's not what it really means. So,
well, the cool thing about branding, and Tom and I did an episode on that, is that branding can be anything. We talked about how Apple was competing against the X7 500 with the gold-plated connectors in the computer world, and they said, no, we're going to be an Apple. And they made up what that meant. And you surround, like you've done with H7, with the values and the mission and what you do to help transform people. H7 now has a whole new meaning.
It does, yeah.
So that's just like me, marketing guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you first started out, there's a number of networking groups, both national and regional. And how did you differentiate yourself in terms of branding, in terms of sales, in terms of marketing, and really start to grow H7?
That's a great question. So back essentially, many years ago, I had kind of made a choice that, when you looked out in the landscape and the networking, so way back where I'm from in the Cincinnati, Dayton area, all you saw was like BNIs and chambers. And so that's kind of who I was essentially at that point was thinking of. And I made a choice that I wanted to be the opposite of BNI, right? Because I don't want to ever feel like I have an abundance mindset. And so I like to work together with other groups. And so it really came down to originally, it was just trying to be the farthest end of the opposite end of the spectrum and different means to a similar end or better end, right? To be competitive.
Right.
And so I thought that H7 really needed to be more like America, where there's multiple people that do the similar things in every small town across America. And do business with people they like to do business with.
Yeah.
not who they're
Hmm.
forced to do business with. Not to say that any other groups force that, but I'm just saying that if there's only one person in the room for you to pick from, that can be tricky, especially when you're making referrals. So we set out on the educational path as well many years ago. And honestly, when I started doing all those one-to-ones, things just started opening up and transforming and really hitting our training as hard as we can. And so
Yeah.
I think that answers your question.
Did you do much marketing, or was it word of mouth primarily?
All word of mouth.
Oh, that's great.
You can track all groups that exist today have 2 origination points, and technically just one. The group I had in H7 still have it today. It's called H7 Westchester. And it was a hub for so long. It created so many meetings and groups and stuff all over the country. In fact, a gentleman that's on my board, he was in the B2B virtual, the original hub. And he and I and many others from that original H7 Westchester meeting all helped to create the virtual hub. So all those 2 meetings on Friday at 8:30 in Westchester and 12 o'clock on Friday created all of it, all by word of mouth.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the education piece, and I did your certification.
Yeah.
And you have some core principles. And I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but tell us a little bit about that education program and the certifications that you do, and what you've learned by putting, as you put this all together.
Yeah. So I learned a few years back, that I have a very methodical mind, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of thing. And I really can envision things abstractly that help me kind of put puzzle pieces together and all this stuff. It's just unique. And so, instead of just putting together groups where people can come in and meet each other, as I was learning, I felt responsible to share that information with our members. And so that's kind of where it started. But the certifications are all built around a journey that a single professional can take to begin building trust with other connections and future trusted relationships. They can actually follow this method from the beginning to the end. So the beginning is the starting point is always the one-to-one, right? The end is you have 4 or 5 champion relationships, and through the use of our techniques and our agenda and everything, you can create predictable results for the first time ever in word of mouth marketing. It's very challenging, but it starts at the beginning with the one-to-one, and it ends with having multiple champion relationships or trusted relationships that you can count on to grow your business and have all the tools that you would need to make that actually happen.
I've personally experienced that. Next week we have Mark J. Carter as a guest, and he's a professional interviewer and really niching down to do the interviews. And we do Restream and live streaming and LinkedIn Live, and I want to partner with him. I mean, this is a guy that's interviewed Michael Dell, and I want to feature him as one of our interviewers for what we do. And on the first meeting, he reached out to me, and he was just so generous. And you mentioned the abundance mindset. You talk a little bit about those principles that you have that get us to having those relationships, because it's not just a direct connection with Mark, but there are people who are trying to connect me with others and in my niche. You have, like, I think of know, like, and trust, but you have a little bit of a twist on that, and some other things that you teach people.
Yeah. So connect, serve, and ask is what I think you're talking about. That is the core of everything. That is the beginning of everything. That is how it all works. And connect, serve, and ask was born out of my first 3,000 hours of one-to-ones. And so connect, serve, and ask at its core just simply means that that you value other people. Value other people and how you treat them and how you talk with them and how you behave around them, how you value other people. So connect, serve, and ask, if that's its core, that means at any time, when you actually leverage or apply connect, serve, and ask method to either one other person or a group setting, there's a whole lot of great things that can come from that. Because connect, serve, and ask means that, Keith, you and I are going to connect with one another. I'm going to serve you in some way. And then I'm going to ask of you. It brings balance to the altruist. It brings balance to the servant leader. It brings balance to where, they're not always the one that's doing all of the work. And it makes lighter work when you have relationships. When you connect, serve, and ask them, they're very much more motivated to work with you because they see an authentic side to you where you value other people. And how many people want to be around other people that seem to value others, right?
Yeah.
So tell us some of your favorite stories that have come out of these relationships, and that not for you, but how do you see this manifest with the people who join the network, and what are some of the results that you enjoy seeing?
Well, I got one for you. Now I can't say names and all this stuff, but I will say it this way.
Yeah.
Jackie Gurney. This is a great example. Jackie is a great professional and human being. And so Jackie and I have been connect, serving, and asking each other ever since the day in which she walked through the door. And not only that, but her and I send each other referrals and introductions all the time. And we constantly, we display connect, serve, and ask constantly. Then one day she asked me a question that said, hey, I'm thinking about bringing a community that I know about over to H7. What do you think? I said, let's do it. And now they're coming online this coming month, right? That's a connect, serve, and ask story. The connect, serve, and ask stories are countless in terms of success. We got a member, Don Kloss, which great guy too. He's out of Denver. You guys may know him. And Don, he just told me yesterday, 70% of all his new business year over year is coming out of H7 from leveraging connect, serve, and ask constantly. Every meeting he's in, everything he does, it was so great. I just heard that yesterday. We were just in a one-to-one yesterday, catching up. And so those are two really great stories. And both of those people are leaders, of course, in the community too. And they display connect, serve, and ask constantly. And you can tell a difference in the folks that do, the reputation that they have when they do display that.
I think it's really impressive that as you've grown it, and there's a lot that you have to do to run H7, but yet you still connect, serve, and ask, and you still do one-on-ones and practice what you preach.
It is a big deal to me, Tom. That is a big.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Appreciate that. I still do about 12 to 15 one-to-ones a week with non-members. This time last year, I shifted my schedule so that I could spend more time with members. I needed to do that, so we did, and it worked out well. And there's a lot of balance that comes with the role and responsibilities I have, but I have to stay sharp.
When you've got, let's say, 30 minutes with someone, what are the key questions or focus areas that you like to find out about someone, and how do you typically ask them?
Yeah, so the connect, serve, and ask method, and I will answer your question. Strategically, you want to focus on earning trust with that other person as much as you possibly can, as quick as you can. Okay?
Yes.
You can't really serve or ask somebody if you haven't connected with them. So you can't take away from the connection piece. So in a 30-minute time span, you have to be extremely efficient with your time, and not just for your time, but including their time. You want them to feel like they've also had a great 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so the connecting questions are relatively maybe elementary. Where are you at? Where you live? What do you do? How long you been doing it? Tell me about your family. You can't connect for the full 30 minutes, right? So you have to be like in and out there. But if you don't connect with them at all, you can't really serve them.
Right.
And so there's a couple questions I use when I'm connecting. When I'm serving, I say, who would you like to meet?
Yeah.
If you and I were in a one-to-one, Tom, I'd say, okay, who'd you like to meet, Tom?
Right.
And then I'm going to active listen, hear what you're saying. I'm going to offer up potential, meaningful connections. That has something to do with maybe they share your target market, they share your target contact, regional base. Where are you at? Geography based. Where can you do business? All that stuff matters when making that connection and listening to what they're saying, right? Then when it comes to ask, I always have my asks ready. I'm always looking for fractionals. So they don't need to spend as much time on me, but they still get a couple minutes with hearing what I have to say.
Right.
And the point around that serve, right? Serve and ask, those two elements right there is where trust begins to be formed. So if I don't serve you, I'm not earning any trust. If I don't help you, support you, anything like that, trust is not happening. If I don't ask you for help with an introduction or something, then I'm literally taking the power away from you to earn my trust.
Right.
So pick a side. Do you want trusted relationships or you want buddies to go drinking with? Which one?
Yeah. That's a great approach.
It's so important. I've always worked with sales teams, and the rule of thumb is between 60 and 90% of your active leads come from prospecting and networking. All the content marketing, all the social, that's window dressing to help you do a good job by putting the brand out through content, activating the brand. You support the sales team, but they must do the relationship building. That's why they're on the front line. I know you use HubSpot. Just to dig in a little bit, what's your experience in using the technology to help you create these relationships?
Oh man, I've had so much fun mixing and intermingling, technology with the in-person or all of that human interaction and technology, and using that has been a lot of fun. People tell you what they want to tell you to your face, but if something's not right, they'll put it in a form. So we learn a lot from the use of those forms, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those KPIs in there that we look for, that I personally look for, I search, I look at every single form submission every single day from every single group that we have. I take time to do that because that teaches me something. It teaches me that we're communicating well, not communicating well, missing information, too much information. It teaches you so much by actually knowing the answers to the questions that you probably have always wanted to know.
Very cool. We're on a mission to make this format of the podcast and live streaming connected right to your CRM so that you can put on a show, invite your audience, talk to your audience, and then apply what you're talking about, right? So I think the world is changing. We've all been sitting on Zoom, and so there's an aspect of featuring people, not just sitting in a room and looking at tiles and talking to people. I think the next wave here is really connecting the technology to these kinds of interviews, and then have breakouts like you have, right? And build your network. So Really fascinating. Before we move on to the fun part of the show, is there anything else you want to share about H7 that we haven't gotten to that you want to tell our audience?
Well, I'll say this: we are living in a new time of H7. Okay, where technology has met the human piece, right? And so, after all the work we did putting on the virtual community and all the work of putting in the meetings and all the work and all the playbooks and all the stuff we've done to solidify all that, do you know it took me almost 3 years to figure out how to bring virtual into in-person, like our formats?
Oh,
And
wow.
it took the use of technology to find that out and try some things out, and it freaking finally worked. Took 3 years. So, like, for example, our B2B virtual that you're involved in, Keith, I can now do that in person. That's a huge, huge breakthrough. Huge breakthrough.
So that's the future.
It is the future. Yeah. Yeah. Very
Well,
bright.
Speaking of bright futures, tell us a little bit about what we're all curious about, and that's who's your favorite band?
Oh, man, I don't have a favorite band. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Tell us about your rock and roll experience.
Yeah.
Any favorite concerts among your top 2 or 3? Doesn't have to be your favorite, but who's among that group?
Yeah, so I have a mixture of genres that I like. Okay. And it depends on where I'm at in the process. But when we're talking about bands, you know, there's nothing like just a local band, man, rocking it out, and you sit in your lawn chair listening to it.
Nice.
You know, and but when it comes to like favorite artists or whatever, I'm a Michael Jackson. I'm an 80s rock band.
There you go.
Guy, right? Like, I love 80s rock, Metallica, Poison, you know, all of the big hair. You know? From the commercials at Late Night USA, right? The 80s, you know, the big hair bands and stuff. Oh, yeah, loved all those. Love those still today.
That's great. That's my era too, and that's Keith's era.
Yeah. 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 So
any memorable concerts? I think, Keith, you're going down the same path.
Same path.
Yeah. Memorable concerts. Kenny.
Who was your first concert?
Aside from local bands like big concert, would have been Kenny Chesney.
Kenny Chesney, all right.
He was one of my favorite. Was until he went Caribbean. Prior to Caribbean, he was my favorite country singer. With Uncle Cracker and all that stuff, he lost me, but it's fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of participating in a network like H7, you develop a personal brand, and you can. What Tom and I love are drawing all these analogies from our bands. Yep. And you know, that's what happens when you go off brand. You risk alienating people.
Yeah. When Uncle Cracker showed up, I'm like, nope. I can't handle the Hawaiian music from Tin Man. Or my daughter just went off to college, whatever, with my credit card. Like, now we're talking Uncle Cracker, and totally threw it off.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I have seen, because of where I live, fun fact, ready? Where I live, in Franklin, Ohio, there's a huge sand volleyball venue that has concerts year round, or 6 months a year. And I got to meet the guy from Digital Underground.
Yeah.
Digital Underground came, so this was like 10 years ago. The daggone singer comes out of Franklin. If you know you probably don't know Franklin, right? But it's just some hillbilly town, right? He comes out and got on a guy's Harley. About to be a fight with the Underground guy.
That's great.
Yeah, he had his nose on and everything. He just goes out after the thing, and he's over there looking at everybody's bikes and stuff. He just got on that guy's bike. That's like illegal. You don't get on another man's horse.
You know, the craziest stuff happens, and we all come out, you know, we all mostly come out okay, but rock and roll has some crazy stories.
Yep. They had Blues Traveler there. Boy, that one got shut down about 30 minutes into it because of all the fighting. And I'm like, Blues Traveler's all love and stuff. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
That's funny.
Did you have to drink the last one? You could have just put that one to the side.
Right, right.
It's a lot of fun, though.
That's great.
It is. Well, you know, rock and roll is one of our last guests, Joseph McElroy, talked about rock and roll is really a melting pot, and it builds on different genres, and it's always evolving. And I could almost make that comment about the H7 network.
It is. It is. And there's probably something to be said about creativity, the artistry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, I'm telling you, I love nothing better than creating something new from scratch of something I know so much about and just giving it away.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's servant leadership right there.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it so much. So,
well, this has been terrific. It's amazing how fast 30 minutes goes by. But we appreciate, you know, in that serve and ask mode, you know, that's why you're on the show, because I said I have a new podcast and you offered. I didn't even ask. You know, that was my ask, but I didn't even get there. So we so much appreciate you being here. And Tom, it's always great to do this with you.
Absolutely.
Starting to look forward to this part of the week. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Clay.
It's really my pleasure. It's honestly, for me, it's an honor. Okay. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had a gentleman last year, just very quickly, tell me about these podcasts, right? We were having this conversation. And I said, yeah, anytime a member's doing a podcast, I'm on it. Well, he owns another networking group, this guy I'm talking to. And he's like, why would you be on just anybody's podcast? Like, such a waste of time. And I said, wow. Well, that seems really jaded. These are actual people. And man, ever since, I will be on any way I can help, I want to help. And there's nobody going to stop me.
That's reflected in the culture of H7. I can tell you in my 6 months, you know, there are people who show up. You talk about the creativity. There are people that are pros, right? And then you have people that are afraid. They're literally afraid, and you can see the courage that they show up with, right? To push through that fear and show up. And they get, you know, so I recognize how you do value people. And I think that's what makes H7 work, because one of my coaches said to me, oh, don't join H7. That's just a broad, you know, spray and pray kind of network. And I'm like, that's not what is going on there, because, you know, with the kind of 6 degrees of separation, right? The introductions that you get made are tangential, and you don't know where it's going to go. And with that abundance and that sharing and bringing people along, I think it makes I've never experienced a networking group like this. And I've done the BNIs, and I've done the American Marketing Association, and you know, they're all good. I'm not taking anything away, but I think underlying that, what you've built, you know, really reflects your passion and your mission.
Hey, can I end on one note? And it's a comment that just came through, and it says Clay's approach is so simple and yet once articulated, is so obvious. It's great knowing Clay is a genuine person that has an interest in people. Very cool, Clay.
Yeah. Yeah. Dennis is good people too.
Shout
I know
out to Dennis.
Yeah. Dennis is good people.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. Well,
All
guys,
right.
I really appreciate, like I said, I'm honored to be on here. I appreciate it. And hope all the audience that's listening, if you guys want to connect or anything for a one-to-one, I will connect, serve, and ask with you all day long. So
All
let me
right.
know.
Tell people with you, sir.
Yep. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn is the most obvious way. Clay Hicks, H7 Network, whatever it takes to search me. Go ahead and send me a connection request. And then you can send me, I actually accept them and I respond to my messages. So there you go. Unless you're just trying to sell me. If you're just pitch slapping me, no, I'm not. You want to meet up and have a genuine relationship or something? I'm down.
All right. Well, rock and roll, my friend. Thank you for all your passion and everything you bring to this show. And we'll be cutting this up and making a podcast ecosystem and sharing your message out from here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right. Cheers.